Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to a Friday edition of the Solution Breakdown. My name is Mark Baker, and I'll be your host today. Uh, Before we get into things, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and subscribe to everything the Hardcore Sports Network has to offer. Some great shows. Make sure you hit that button. Um, So just a couple things that I wanted to go over today. A lot of most of those games were last night, yesterday. I mean, it was probably much more entertaining to watch the NBA, but uh, it's a very weird year here in the NFL. The amount of solid. Let me put it this way: the league this year has been very top heavy, and I think it's been a very rare year where we've seen the playoff picture be pretty much set at this point. The only other thing that we're really going to be worrying about is division winners, particularly with Tampa and Carolina. And if I had to give you a toss up, I probably would say Carolina's going to win that division. But this is a very weird year. Um, we know the teams, we just don't know the alignment. And this is one of those years in which we don't really know who a clear favorite is. If we go base it off of record and we base it off of seeding, yeah, I mean, we could see a New England Denver AFC championship. Now, I would be surprised if we do. And I will tell you this, I would not be surprised if we and I said this last stream, which is that, hey, listen, would it surprise anyone if in especially in the AFC if the number 1 and 2 seed lost their opening game? Would it surprise anyone if, let's say, Houston, based off of where they're seeding, goes to the conference title game and it's at and it's in and it's in Houston? I don't think it would surprise anybody. But I do want to get into one point that I want to make here, which is there's no Mahomes, no Burrow, no Lamar. For Josh Allen, and I will say this until the Bills get knocked out, if not now, then when? Seriously, if not now, then when? Because we all think that it's just going to last forever. It's just. I mean, look at what's happened with Lamar. Now they're sitting around, they're talking about, well, he's not very attentive in meetings, falling asleep in meetings, playing too many video games. I mean, it's like what we heard a lot about Kyler Murray, and look at where Kyler Murray's at today. So we think it's going to last forever, but at a certain point, if not now, when? Yes, they've struggled to stop the run. They've been very dependent on James Cook. Uh, they don't really have a number one receiver. The guy they drafted, Keon Coleman, really hasn't panned out. They're a very tight end heavy offense. They they almost lost to Cleveland. I wouldn't say almost lost, but Cleveland was in that game for the most part. Yeah, this may be they're probably their weakest team that they've had, but it's often their best chance right now. right now, and I do wanna touch on that a little bit, um, because I'm not necessarily sure if this is a one-off season. But if you're Buffalo, this might be your best shot because you've already know that you can go into New England and win, especially being down 21 nothing, being down 3 scores early on. You're able to close that gap. Now, yeah, when you struggle to stop the run, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a little bit tough, especially playing January football up north where you might see much more run heavy sets. But we just saw Jacksonville go into Denver and actually finish Denver, which that's how you have to beat Denver. Denver likes to play very close to the sun, and I'll give them credit. They've been great in one score games. They're great when playing from behind. But when you play a little too close to the sun, that's what happens. So if you're a Buffalo Bills team, you either have to go through New England, Denver, and here's another team that I would want nothing to do with, Jacksonville. I want nothing to do with Jacksonville. Outside of a weird loss to Davis Mills and the Davis Mills run Texan team middle of the year. They've been incredible. I mean, hell is Liam Cohen coach of the year. I'm it I wouldn't want anything to do with Jacksonville, especially because Liam Cohen has gotten everything out of Trevor Lawrence that I mean, this is kind of the guy we thought we were going to get 4 years ago. If you don't remember, 4 years ago, now close to 5 years ago, I mean, we were talking about Trevor Lawrence uh, being John Elway. This was an Andrew Luck, John Elway can't miss prospect. And we were this close to being like, eh, kind of like this is a bust. But I mean, like he's resurrected his career. And let's not forget, it's like they're doing it without Travis Hunter. They're doing it with Parker Washington. Brian Thomas is very talented. ETN. I mean, the Bills can't stop the run. Uh I mean, they have Saquon this week, but they could very well have an away game wild card weekend, and they have to go to Jacksonville against that Jacksonville offense. Let's also not forget Houston and the Chargers. Those are two teams that I would want nothing to do. They play each other tomorrow, and that's going to be a hell of a game because those two teams know how to get everything out of their rosters. Houston's offense has definitely been very meh. The Raiders were in that game against Houston the entire way. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, like, is Houston going to win this game? I mean, are the Raiders going to win this game? Like, what? I mean, like, Houston's defense, besides Philly, I mean, they have the best defense in the league with a quarterback that I think we all like. I think we like him. I don't think we like him as much as we did the first year with Bobby Slowick, but I think we like him. Yeah. They're definitely not the same without him. But they show with Davis Mills that they can win a few games. They know how to squeeze everything out of that roster. And similarly, so do the Chargers. Chargers have what, won 4 straight since that blowout loss in Jacksonville? I mean, at times I don't even know if that offensive line can block anybody. Every time Herbert drops back to pass, I'm like, they're gonna kill him. They're gonna absolutely destroy him. I mean, I literally thought that against the I was like, it felt like they sacked him 30 times. But the Harbaugh effect and also the D'Amico Ryans effect. I mean, that's what a coach. Those two guys are what coaches in the NFL look like. Because with just some random guy, you could see these teams being 500 or worse. I mean, it would not have surprised me. Under a Brandon Staley, they would have gone like 8 or 9, 8 and 9, 7 and 10. Or in Houston's case with like a Romeo Crennel, they could have been, it would not have surprised me if Houston's sitting there in like Baltimore situation. But that's where coaching makes the difference. So if you're Buffalo, though, that's what you're up against. And let's not forget Pittsburgh. I know we want to. I know the history about Pittsburgh. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. They've been there. The term that's being thrown out there, they're tone deaf to offense. They spend their defensive spending is way inflated. Like, yeah, yeah, I know. But in the past couple of weeks, I I I I last year was different. I mean, they were what? They were like 8-3. They were 8-3 at a certain point. Uh I mean, I think they ended with like 5 straight losses to end the year. I mean, not great. Not great at all. I think they might have been 10-3. Hell, it doesn't matter. It's a moot point. But um, I mean, their offense fell apart late in the year. I mean, Aaron seems to have brought some cohesiveness. They have a bit of an identity. They're not a we're gonna rip you apart. We're going for the home run ball. Times it feels like they're a very dink and dunk offense. They're very methodical. It's probably fits Pittsburgh's ideal of what they think offense should be. Offense is not an Air Coryell. We're going to throw it downfield. We are going to be as explosive as we can. Pittsburgh, we are going to grind it out. We are going to be methodical. And that's what they've been. That's what they've been. And we can say all day, like, they haven't won a playoff game since 2016. They're usually the barely over 500, make the playoffs and lose in the first round. But I mean, if you look at what their offense has been the past couple of weeks, they've been pretty good. They've been pretty good. And it's not that like they're scoring a bunch of points because they can't stop anybody. Pittsburgh's identity has still remained, and they've added a little bit of offense. Now Buffalo beat them in Pittsburgh, and I would be, and if it does end up the 4-5 is Pittsburgh at home against Buffalo, I would probably take Buffalo in that game. Just because, ultimately, if Pittsburgh's running game has been very so-so, and I ultimately look back to I look back to, the game a couple of weeks ago, and I would say that it would probably go the same, um, ultimately because all the adjustments that could and will be made. I think the difference comes down to it's just that, uh, I trust more in the fact that Josh can put on a cape and grind the Bills to a victory. Like, that's what I would think it would come down to. Now think about it this way, if you're Buffalo, is, if you're in kind of like a toss-up game against Pittsburgh that has not shown any sort of relevancy in the playoffs for close to a decade and seems to be repeating this pattern over and over again, where they're kind of like, to offense, and they've been that year in, year out, and that's what seems to get them over and over again, and they keep repeating the script. If you're in a game where, like, I mean, listen, when Kansas City was doing its thing, there's I remember one year they played Pittsburgh. They might have played Pittsburgh again. No, but I remember they played Pittsburgh. They played Pittsburgh probably about 4 or 5 years ago. It was one of those, like, you don't even question it. We got bigger things to worry about. And that's the difference between a Super Bowl winning team and not a Super Bowl winning team. Now I could be wrong. I could be dead wrong. And you know what? I want to be dead wrong. But I think if you're like, we're not even sure if we can get out of the first round, that's a bit of a red flag. But I would say that for any of these teams. Can any of them get out of the first round? And I'm only talking the AFC here. I'm only talking the AFC. The NFC is even much more wild, because you got to imagine in the NFC, the only game in the first round, wild card or even divisional, that I would probably say would be a lock is whoever's going to play the Packers, that 7 seed. Listen, that Bears loss is demoralizing, and it's not only demoralizing because of you didn't recover the onside kick. It's just the degree of, you had a roster that was capable of winning a Super Bowl. Now, when you take out a couple people, you take out a Tucker Craft, you take out a Micah Parsons. Hell, Jordan Love got hurt. You don't know how that's going to affect him down the stretch. Because then you throw all that into consideration. Then you throw the Chicago meltdown. You're in the playoffs now, but you're in not because you really earned the right, but because essentially Detroit dropped that game in Minnesota yesterday, and clearly is not the same without Ben Johnson. So that would be the only game I would even say in the NFL playoffs that I would say is probably a lock. And at this rate, I mean, maybe even looking, at this rate, maybe even looking at a Bears Packers rematch. And you got to understand that I would trust Ben Johnson in that game if the Bears are healthy, to do things differently. I mean, hell, the Bears won that game last week with they had a lot go right at the end. They did not play their best ball. So they tightened it up a little bit. Now, if Jordan Love's healthy, I imagine that'll be a little bit different. But you got to understand the context in which like Malik Willis, I mean, kept the Packers steady. I mean, the Packers are one onside kick recovery away to being we talk about Malik Willis and we talk about Matt LaFleur in such a different way if they can just get that onside kick. Like it really is a game of inches. But I think that being said, I think even if you have Jordan Love or or Malik Willis in a situation like that, I mean, maybe one or two throws are different. But you're gonna have to know that Chicago, if they end up getting the 2 seed and they have to play Green Bay, the 7 seed, and it's that home rematch, well, I trust Ben Johnson, and I trust that Chicago will make a couple of tweaks that would get them over the top. Now, let's consider the fact that, all right, I mean, it's much more likely that the if the Bears lose on Monday night, they still have the 2 seed because they have the head-to-head over Philly. And trust me, if Philly got the 2 seed and they played the Packers, I good luck. Good luck, especially with that pass rush and the way that defense has been playing. That's much more of a favorable matchup for the defending champs. That's the only matchup I would say around the league, but definitely in the NFC because, well, I mean, hell, I don't know. I don't know either. I don't know about Carolina. If Carolina wins the South, and I think that they will, they've already beat the Rams. They gave the Rams problems. I'd probably take the Rams in that game, but I think it'd be pretty close. Even if the Niners were the 5 seed, I still think it would be pretty close. In Carolina, the Panthers have been pretty damn good. Been pretty damn good at home. Where they have struggled and why they're and why they're sitting at 8 and 7 is because they for the most part struggle on the road. I mean, a game that they needed against New Orleans, they dropped that game. Which don't sleep on New Orleans next year. That I'll save that for another time. So yeah, and uh, with the way the Niners are playing right now, if Brock Purdy's healthy, I don't know. I wouldn't want to play San Francisco. Uh, so which brings me into what I really wanted to give everyone here is my conference championship predictions based off of what I talked about in the AFC. What I think will happen is I think Buffalo will host the AFC Championship game against Houston. That's You're damn right. I think Buffalo will host as a two wild card teams will play for the conference title. On the NFC, I think it'll be Seattle will host San Francisco to play for the Super Bowl. And in the Super Bowl, I would take Buffalo against Seattle. That's what I'm going with. And to win the Super Bowl, I think it would come down to, for me, it would come down to which quarterback would I trust in a pressure situation like that. I probably would trust Josh Allen. But that's my bold take. Is Buffalo wins the Super Bowl against Seattle. With San Fran going to the title game and Houston going to the title game. So we'll see what happens. Another thing that I wanted to touch on for a bit. I mentioned earlier, like one of the first things that I had said was this is a very weird year. It's a very weird year in the NFL, but I don't really think it's that weird because we're gonna have a couple of storylines in the off season that are going to be pretty juicy, and it's going to involve three out of the four what we would consider going into the year would be elite quarterbacks, with Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, and then Josh is in the playoffs. Those three are not. And those three have a lot of questions that they're going to have to ask in the offseason. For the Chiefs, it's a little bit more simple, which is like, you know, our star quarterback tore his ACL. We don't really know when he's going to be back. We hope that he'll be back maybe early in the season. That's very optimistic and probably not likely. So he might be out till the minimum of October. Not much you can do. And I don't want to make it sound like I am saying this is great. But the fact that, Gardner Minshew tore his ACL, you're starting some random kid out there, you're likely going to go 6-11. You're likely going to get the 11th or 10th pick. Maybe even 8 or maybe 8 or 9. I think they'll get probably somewhere between like the pick 7 or 10. I have to look at it. And so you don't need a quarterback. You're going to have to acknowledge the fact that Kelsey's going to retire. Chris Jones is getting much older. I think that I think guys like Karlaftis are entering into free agency. So the draft is a good idea, and you know what? Like guys like McDuffie, I don't necessarily I don't necessarily look at like McDuffie as, oh man, but I think a couple of years ago that we were looking at McDuffie as like, wow, this guy is like incredible. Okay, I misspoke. It's actually Omenihu, Charles Omenihu. My bad. Yeah, this is a kind of a list of guys on defense. Hell, you're gonna need to really use maybe pick someone in the first round to bolster that defensive line because I don't know. Chris Jones is getting older. He's shown he can show little spurts here and there, but I mean, let me put it this way. The Chiefs are not in this position because they don't have a Patrick Mahomes problem. They're another one of those, the model of being able to squeeze everything they can out of the talent the talent that their roster has to offer, and then they rely on their Hall of Fame coach, one of the greatest coaches of all time, and Patrick Mahomes. Hey, lead us to victory, and we'll support you. Now they don't really have. Now they have to look to retool. So I mean, if you're Kansas City, you're in an optimistic standpoint. Hey, we have to rebuild. Now the question would be for Kansas City is like, are you retooling? Or are you rebuilding? Because if this is all based off of Patrick Mahomes' health, he might not come back till November. Let's say he doesn't come back till November. The guy's over 30 years old, recovering from a torn ACL. Now I saw a report that last week he had started rehabbing his surgically repaired ACL. So he's already getting started with it. So hell, we've seen things. We're seeing modern medicine really take place. So we want to sit there and say it's 9 months minimum. Who knows? Who the hell knows? Uh, but I don't imagine if Mahomes comes back that they're going to be what they were in 2022, because you're going to definitely have to fill some holes. You're going to have to decide, who do you let go, who do you bring back, and then you have that draft pick at that's probably going to be in the top 10, and that becomes a matter of like, do we trade that pick to get additional picks, or do we look to take someone that we love at let's say they pick at number 8. So that's optimistic. That's optimistic if you're the Chiefs. Now, if you're in a situation like Baltimore or Cincinnati, and I wouldn't even say Cincinnati, I would say it's more of a Joe Burrow thing. Well, that's going to be a little different, because now you're hearing the reports about Lamar. Is he really committed? He's gotten hurt this year. I heard him falling asleep in meetings, being late to meetings. It's kind of having the same as I mentioned earlier, a bit of the Kyler Murray thing. So now you have to ask questions about that. It's like, not only do we hear all that, but his play on the field is like, I mean, Lamar had the it factor. He had it. He had it. He had that like it factor about him. And now he's looked a little bit more pedestrian this year. And I think what he's going to be, 29. And always the criticism of Lamar was the ability to throw at the pocket, which he's definitely improved upon. But now you're in a bit of a situation where if if his speed starts to drop off, then what? Then what do you have with him? Now, I trust Baltimore to make the right decision. They're a very well-run organization. They're a very solid and very well-run team. And that's never been my issue with them. But they're gonna have to make a decision here. Might not be this year, but they're gonna have to make a decision this year this offseason, that's going to determine what direction that they want to go in the next couple of years with Lamar. I'm not saying you cut Lamar. I'm not saying you cut Lamar. I'm not saying you cut bait from the guy. He still has talent, but you certainly have to ask some questions. And then with Cincinnati, it's a case of what's Burrow going to do this offseason? Is he going to demand a trade? I would doubt in hell that Mike Brown would trade him. And one of the few things that I would probably agree with the Bengals front office with is like, no, we're not going to trade you. We're not going to trade you. We paid for 2-star receivers, which I don't think was a bad move. I don't think that was a bad move. I don't think it's like like that was stupid because it's very clear that T Higgins, when Joe has played, there definitely is a rapport. And Jamar Chase is going to get his. It has, it has. I mean, again, like Joe Burrow got hurt. And one of the things that kept Cincinnati floating was their offense. It's their defensive spending. And the thing with Cincinnati and with Joe Burrow is that is the front office going to be committed to actually putting their money where their mouth is and possibly maybe doing like the Packers have had the same problem. But let's look at the Packers last two Super Bowls. It was a couple years before their 96 team that Reggie White they signed Reggie White, which was like the one of the biggest transactions that we know today in NFL history. And then in 2006, a few years before their 2010 run, they signed Charles Woodson. That changed the landscape of their defense. Now, do I trust Cincinnati to do something like that? No, I don't. Which, you know, if I'd had to say, I don't know if this is going to end well because I give them credit. They actually put their money where their mouth is, and they paid T Higgins. Well, they could have easily let him walk. And you know what? Maybe if it was a couple 2 years earlier, they would have let him walk. But it was because of Joe Burrow putting pressure on the organization. I'm not a big fan of people who are like, oh, the players should just play and let the team run. Let the let the front office take care of that. It's like, yeah, but you know what? Like half of the ownership in this league, it's like, what the hell are we doing? I'm not saying we should listen to players all the time, but there are times where it's like, come on, what are we doing? I mean, you could have an entire show of very talented quarterbacks, even players, in which just management let them down time and time again. So I give Burrow a lot of credit for last offseason saying, like, we could pay these guys. How come Philly can do it, but we can't? I give a player the credit for calling out just a like a dumb business model. For Cincinnati, it's time to go big a little bit big on defense. Trey Hendrickson, yes, yeah. I mean, you're probably not going to hold on to him now. I don't know if he'll want to be franchise tagged, but if not him, go get a high profile defensive player because drafting and developing, which I mean, it seems to be the thing with some of these Midwestern teams, is great. But to put you over the top is that guy that not only is a Hall of Fame talent, but shows Hall of Fame leadership. Guy as someone that guys can rally against, can rally with. Because I'm like, who on Cincinnati's defense is really scares you? Osai? What's his biggest play? Oh, he pushed Mahomes out of bounds, and that's what that sent the Chiefs to that Super Bowl against the Eagles a few years ago. Like that's their high profile player. Which is saying all of what I've said for 10 to 15 minutes is pretty much to say that I don't think that we are in a new power vacuum in the NFL. And I'm just very curious of who's going to take it. Who really is going to take it? Because every team that's in the playoffs right now has a lot of questions. There are some teams that have a lot of upside, but there seems a lot of teams that have a lot of questions. Now, my Super Bowl prediction could change because as I'm talking, I want to see how San Francisco does against Chicago on Monday Night Football. And I might change things from there. Hell, it would not surprise me if the Niners are hosting the Super Bowl in Santa Clara. So yeah, I'm hella excited. This I think we're going to be in for a very unpredictable playoff run, which is what the NFL is all about. Which is what sets the NFL apart from baseball, from the NBA. The NBA and baseball, they need superstars. The baseball needs the Dodgers. I'm not a Dodger fan, and I'm not a Dodger like, you know, I'm not going to sit around and ride the Dodgers all day. How great they are. I don't like them, but I think they're good for baseball. I'm going to watch a playoff game with the Dodgers. They make it interesting. They make it interesting. Now with the NBA, it's like the Lakers being good is great for the Warriors being great. The Warriors have been okay, but the NFL, they don't need that. I mean, hell, we could have the Chargers hosting the AFC Championship game against like Buffalo or Houston, or we could have the Patriots, the new age Patriots play Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, and it would still, I mean, it would still be highly popular. I mean, our big rivals in the NFL is New England and Indianapolis. Then it was Buffalo and Kansas City. Like, they don't need the big markets to do well. That's what I love about the NFL. That's what I love about these playoff runs. Who knows? Maybe Jacksonville plays in their first Super Bowl. Like that's something to really look forward to. Like, who knows? In this power vacuum that we have in the NFL, who will take it? Who will seize it? Out of the last, what, 5 Super Bowls, Kansas City's won 3? No, out of the last 6 Super Bowls, Kansas City's won 3. Kansas City, just a good old city out in the Midwest. I mean, I think we're in for a good a good one, and I hope to be wrong. I hope to be wrong. Uh, I'll make it more interesting. But yeah, we'll get out of here on that note. Uh, Remember, hit the like and subscribe button. Um, it's been a pleasure. We'll be back. We'll be back next week. And until then, enjoy the weekend. Happy New Year. Take care.